Okay, it's June 22nd today. Thought I'd do another one of these. Now this setup is very, very overwhelming, but I can reach my phone around just well enough. I'm gonna switch hands here to show you that we are 82 days in. Now I'll start with these guys. It's the same old with them, really. I transplanted a bunch of stuff out and they're still like an overwhelming mess. So I have to figure something out. I might have to make an executive decision soon and throw out a bunch of these, which sucks. You know, that's not pleasant to think about, but I do have to make a determination because this is, you know, very rapidly getting out of control, I think. Now moving on to these guys, they have had a pretty tumultuous couple of weeks, filled with root rot and a couple of other little difficulties, but I finally treated them okay. So I'll just give you a quick update on each. So this is my Carolina Reaper plant that I showed off last week that had root rot issues, and it's getting a bunch of new white growth, which is super good. Like all of that shit is new there that you see, and then there isn't any further growth at the bottom there. It has a nice earthy smell to it. This is a ghost pepper plant over here that similarly had some issues with root rot when I transplanted them in, and you can see here now that there is some new growth starting to show up and it's overall looking very happy. Now, one little concern point that I'm seeing here is that some of the leaves coming in are comparatively more green than I was expecting, and I'm not too sure why that is. So I may just earlier on today, I have some swimming shit I'm doing later on, but prior to that I'll probably just empty out the solution, put in some new stuff, because I have a feeling maybe I over or slightly under concentrated the nutrients. So that shouldn't be too hard to fix. I'll just need to get to that at some point and not forget. And then this is the third guy. I just transplanted him out today. He's a chocolate reaper, and he was in the wet pot previously. And he seems to be doing pretty well so far. I'm just monitoring him. But to make sure that he doesn't get root rot, I filled the solution a lot lower. You can see that little orange bead there indicates where the water level is. It's quite a lot lower than the max capacity. And then the second thing is I added in some of this HydroGuard stuff, and this is like a little bacteria solution type thing that's supposed to introduce like beneficial microbes to this system and prevent it from getting root rot, among other things. Apparently it helps with growth too, so we'll see what happens. Now I guess with that out of the way, I wanted to kind of talk about how I treated the root rot, because there are a couple different things I tried that didn't really work so well. So step one was that I took out the roots here, so let's just pretend that these are all rotten, right? I then trimmed off all the unhealthy stuff, and that led to quite a few roots coming off, but I just took some scissors, sterilized them with isopropyl, and then went at it. After that was done, I prepared a little hydrogen peroxide solution. So I'd say into a cup, I dumped about a third hydrogen peroxide and then 2/3 water. And then I let this guy soak for about 30 seconds. And then finally, after all that was done, I rinsed it off, redid this bucket solution here with a bunch of new fertilizer, and then set it in. And that seemed to help it the best. And like ever since then, I haven't seen any problems with it. Now, one thing I did try that didn't work out too well was I put hydrogen peroxide into this previously at one point, and I put in a very small amount. I'd say about like maybe 25 milliliters or so, though I probably could have gotten away with a little bit less. But all the same, I found when I did that, it started killing off a lot more of the roots, and I'd open this up every day to see a bunch of roots that were dead and clinging to, I guess it was the little air stone here, this little pipe. It was clinging to that, smelled really nasty, and it overall wasn't fun. So what I'd recommend if you do have root rot like this is just doing like hydrogen peroxide, obviously, because that helps kill off pathogens. But at the same time, I wouldn't put it into the new solution. I would just replace the solution, scrub out the bucket so that the bacteria that are causing the root rot aren't there, and then you should have a much greater chance of success. Because at least for me, I found peroxide just caused further problems when I put it into the solution. So that's my advice. Now that's going to be the most I have to talk. I'll go over to these guys because they've actually been a very, very nice story. It's a nice little fairy tale over here. So these guys have a bunch of little flower pods starting to sprout. You can see them hanging down from the sides there, so that's nice. This is, I will just remind you guys, my chocolate reaper that previously had a bunch of weird problems after I transplanted it. Now he's doing pretty well, and it's actually to the point where like these guys are blocking so much light that a bunch of the leaves are like draping over the side like curtains, which is a little bit strange. So I may wind up pruning those slightly later to refocus growth to the rest of the plant. But overall, it's doing super well, and it seems really happy. And I imagine probably in a week or two I'll have some flowers to pollinate, so I'm super excited. Now this is the ghost pepper plant that I transplanted, and it is also doing quite well. You can see a bunch of little flower pods, and there is even a white one, if I can get the camera to focus here, right over there, which means that probably given like a day or two, it'll start to open up and then I can pollinate it, which I'm super excited for. And then this is the Carolina Reaper plant. It's been a little bit slower, weirdly, because it was, I think, the healthiest of the three when I first transplanted it. But you can see here that there's not really much in the way of flower pod growth at the moment. It's just still creating a bunch of vegetation, and I imagine, like, given a week or two, we'll probably start to see some flowers. But it has been a little bit slower than I was expecting, which I don't really care about too much, but I'm just going to keep monitoring it, see what happens. What's important is it seems healthy. So that's good. Anyway, that's more or less it. I'd say overall things are looking up. I have quite a lot more optimism for this project than I think I did last week, but it seems to be getting to a point where they're taking off and I don't really have to interfere too much. So I'm very, very happy about that, and I guess we'll see what happens over the coming days.